I learned it.
The recording is in progress, Floyd.
Okay, all right. So thank you, Andrew, very much. We are now starting IGU Summit, the Indigenous Global Unity Summit, week 92. So we are today here to discuss a little bit about the partnership possibilities between Drawdown Markham and our INAP collaborative, and potential to establish similar in a community called La Poterie, Quebec. But first, I will go through, because we do have some members who probably have not seen these presentations before, in particular Alain. I would like to go through at least the first few pages of the IGU Summit event. But as always, we do start these before we move forward by giving a land acknowledgement. So we begin today by acknowledging that we walk upon the traditional territories of Indigenous peoples, and we recognize their history, spirituality, culture, and stewardship of the land. We're grateful to all Indigenous groups for their commitment to protect the land and its resources. We're committed to reconciliation, partnership, and enhanced understanding. We acknowledge the land we're meeting on here in the Greater Toronto Area is the traditional territory of many nations. On the land known in Kalankeha as Tukaranto, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Wendat, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe or Anishinaabe peoples, and is now home to many diverse peoples. We'd also like to acknowledge the land we're on here is at the meeting place of two treaties, the lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit and those of the First Nations, the Williams Treaties. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 and is subject to the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. We also acknowledge the Two-Row Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Six Nations of the Tukaranto watershed and the settlers, an agreement that bound them to work together, but to develop their societies in parallel on these shared lands. In our role as settlers and displaced people on this land, we share the responsibility of challenging and disrupting colonial systems that enact violence upon the land and stand in solidarity with Indigenous peoples. We'd like to thank these Indigenous peoples of these lands, including First Nations, Inuit, and Métis, for sharing this land with us. We also acknowledge and recognize all of the world's Indigenous peoples as stewards of Mother Earth. So with that, as always, I do like to say Sawubona, which means I see you, I see myself in you, and I see your hopes, your dreams, and your struggles. I see your ancestors as well, because interconnectedness does not end with two people who are grieving each other. It extends to include the ancestors, because all beings in Mother Nature are interconnected, and there is no sense of being separate. I see myself in all beings, and therefore, if I harm other beings or Mother Nature, it translates into harming myself. So today is Thursday, March 9th, 2023. Again, week 92 of our IGU Summit series and the 10th of our IGU Summit event for 2023. We don't have a guest speaker for today. We'll be having a guest presentation, but we'll instead have a discussion about a possible partnership between the Markham INAP Collaborative of UnityNet GTA and the community of La Patrie, Quebec, and their local community INAP Collaborative, which we can help them establish. So as noted in the invitation to this event, the conversation will be focused on doing twinned POC projects, POC meaning proof of concept, in both of these communities, but possibly also in other countries, possibly on multiple continents, including Africa and Eurasia, in order to demonstrate possibilities to scale a distributed global network of regenerative climate smart infrastructure solutions established in local communities worldwide. The overall purpose of UnityNet is actually to establish a global network of community Unity Garden learning centers, where hybrid exchange programs and practical learning can be delivered by the members of UnityNet's partners to all members of the Global Partnership for Regenerative Development and their Learning Partnership for Global Unity. So the learning programs are intended to be delivered through the Global Sister Schools program in partnership with the members of the Global Unity Network, or UnityNet. So we twin the communities through the CTP program of the Science for Peace Drawdown Markham Community Climate Action Hub, which has a goal of building holistic, regenerative, climate-smart communities in support of the UnityNet and the AHIABGA project of localization of global goals and the establishment of a localized, productive, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind. So our CCAH, or Community Climate Action Hub, and the Collaborative Exchange Program, you will find some links in the chat as well if you would like to learn a little bit more or join it. What I'd like to mention is that what we do in UnityNet through work of UnityNet International and our partners is to establish localized INAB collaboratives, interfaith neighborhood academic and business collaboratives, which are intended to empower the local productive humanitarian entrepreneurs in each local community through the global Unity Network and the local INAB collaboratives. So the humanitarian entrepreneurs are the ones who are delivering the practical local regenerative solutions for achieving the global goals, or the SDGs, locally, or as we like to say, globally. The purpose of the INAB collaboratives is not only to empower the local humanitarian entrepreneurs, but also to help organize the ongoing community engagement, the education, and the training of the local solutions that are required for local people to understand how to do things locally in order to become more resilient, more self-sufficient, and decolonize, to better adapt to climate change, to boost their local economies, to ensure equity, and that nobody is being left behind in their own local communities. So the INAB collaboratives also ensure transparency and accountability, and are the vehicle through which we can demonstrate regenerative finance, where a good portion of the monies that are spent in the community will also stay in that community, but where a portion of the productive profits from the local regenerative community enterprises are also used to help others in other local communities in the watersheds or regions in order to ensure that nobody is being left behind, and where some of those funds could also be used to help others around the world ensure that their own local communities are self-sufficient and resilient and regenerative too. So our ultimate purpose is to ensure that every local community in the UnityNet network has an INAB collaborative and a cooperative humanitarian network that is not only localizing the global goals, but is also helping their local communities to achieve the localized, productive, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind. And that in the future, hopefully by 2030, it will be recognized by those who finance projects and infrastructure, or provide things like insurance products or reinsurance for other insurance companies, that doing a local project or infrastructure development in any local community anywhere on Earth should not get the financing until there is an active and functional INAB collaborative in that local community, made up of the community members and their allies globally. So this is the overall thrust of what we're doing. But first, as always, I do like to start with an introduction of who I am and who we are. So I am Lloyd Helferty, co-founder of UnityNet International, also known as Uni, a hybrid holistic practicum learning system management company based in Canada that also assists with community partnership building globally by leveraging a set of community engagement activities developed in partnership with the members of the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors, or AHIABGA. I'm also the Chief Ecosystem Director, Program Development Director, and a Sustainable Society Consultant for Energyme University, headquartered in Manhattan, New York. I'm located in the city of Markham. I'm in the Don River watershed, the German Mills Creek subwatershed specifically, which drains into Lake Ontario, the lowest and last of the North American Great Lakes, in the Great Lakes Basin of the Greater Toronto bioregion in Southern Ontario, Canada, North America, also known as Turtle Island. So Energyme University is a private 501(c)(3) nonprofit company in New York, a member of the UN Global Compact, a UN academic impact member and partner, We are a virtual university. We were created to help empower global populations to reestablish sustainable balance with their local environments. So Energime does this by designing and implementing projects that support a strong and diversified local economy while integrating core sustainable technologies and infrastructure into those communities in the areas of renewable energy, high density food growth solutions, along with systems for sustainably managing local waste streams and protecting local water resources. We are supported by over 375 companies whose products and technologies we employ. Importantly, Energime University also supports local education and training in the construction, deployment, and maintenance of all of the various integrated solutions for achieving closed loop systems that in turn support self-sufficient, sustainable communities. I'm not going to go into the details, which I tend to do sometimes during these events, but I will put my contact information, and if ever we do an Energime project, we will go into some of those details. But for now, I just am putting some additional information into the chat. People can save the chat if they wish at the end or any time by pressing the 3 little dots at the bottom of the Zoom screen for those who are on with us. So I am providing, again, some additional information, especially about our Science for Peace Climate Smart Food program, which is one of the programs that we are leveraging in order to, I guess you could say, facilitate community engagement and the conversations, which always gets facilitated in ways that are more congenial when we do discussions around food. So another thing I'm going to show here is our Living Calendar. I talk about events coming up as well. I do show this Living Calendar, something that I have been creating. It is in a work in progress. I'll be adding more events as we move forward, as we did last year. So the Living Calendar reflects the Drawdown Markham and UnityNet GTA plan for 2023. So the calendar revolves around 5 key community engagement events in April, May, June, August, and October. You'll see them in red. So the 5 events include the UNDRIP Day on Earth Day, which is Saturday, April 22nd. So that's going to be a little over a month from now. The next one is World Biodiversity Day on Sunday, May 22nd. This is new. We haven't done it before, but you can see it in our calendar in the middle in bright green. So we also have an Abraham Project Tree Planting Day on Monday, June 5th, 2023, which is World Environment Day. We have done this before last year in Mississauga. The 4th event is the International Youth Day on Saturday, August 12th, where we do our globally coordinated Bubble Fun festivals during our UnityNet Community Unity Weeks. And finally is Youth Peace Week in October, which starts on Global Cooperation Day, which is Wednesday, October 4th, 2023. Not yet recognized in the UN calendar, but we are hoping that this will happen in the future. So this is the date of our Ubuntu Summit, the event which also launches not just Youth Peace Weeks, but also the Global Climate Smart Youth Forum, and a series of events, which is our primary hybrid learning week program that takes place until Monday, October 16th, which is World Food Day. Again, the focus on food as a way to have conversations. And so you'll notice that I've also added something called Somos Avalon Maya, which is a spiritual event that takes place with the Maya in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, every Sunday at 11:11 a.m. Eastern Time. So the events are shown in pink on the calendar. And Mitch Gold has said to me earlier as well that they are looking at how to connect the 2 energies of the eagle and the condor. And so one last thing that I wanted to mention is that on Tuesday, January 17th, which of course was about 2 months ago, you'll see in our calendar in orange in January, we had our first Drawdown Markham virtual event. At that event, we discussed establishing our PodNet GTA Enterprise Network, which is intended to also support the 25 INAB collaboratives that we would like to create here in the Greater Toronto area. So as mentioned in past weeks here in Markham and the GTA, we are doing everything through those INAP collaboratives, including demonstrating regenerative gardens, forests, farms, and buildings, along with kitchens and regenerative finance. And of course, we'll be empowering our humanitarian entrepreneurs who are localizing these global goals in each of our own local communities. So I'd like to ask everybody to join us wherever you are in the world. So this is the essence of the Global Unity Network. We call it our network of networks, which consists of these local and localized multi-stakeholder partnerships, or the interfaith neighborhood academic and business collaboratives, INAP collaboratives, who are hopefully changing the paradigm of development globally, one local community at a time. I also mentioned for the past few weeks that there are other things to consider because we are trying to align ourselves with the United Nations and their calendar. So the FAO did come out with a newsletter recently, actually back in January, but I did note that 2023 is the International Year of Millets. So this is something to also consider. Where COP15 was also mentioned, especially around the adoption of the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, which is important because it also established a set of global biodiversity goals. So those are brand new, just from this past December, from that big biodiversity meeting that was in Montreal. So this is a new set of goals. So we're going beyond the Sustainable Development Goals. And these are also what we should be truly supporting, not only those SDGs. So the global biodiversity goals need to be translated into national goals in each country, considering each country's circumstances and priorities. So I'll be putting details into the chat. Also important is the 2023 SDG Summit, the high-level political forum on sustainable development under the auspices of the General Assembly, which will be convened in September from the 19th to the 20th. So during the UN General Assembly High-Level Week, this is where heads of states and governments gather at the UN headquarters in New York to follow up and review the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and those 17 SDGs. So this is also on the calendar. I'm hoping we can have some presence at that event, possibly in collaboration with our partners in Manhattan, like Energy University, and of course, We the World, Bill and Rick Ulfik. And so, again, in the chat, you will find some links to, for instance, this SDG Summit and that FAO newsletter, some of the important links and meetings that happened earlier may be important for us as we move forward, because there are obviously dialogues that we would like to be a part of, with the idea here being that we would like to eventually have what we call a seat at the table during these sorts of negotiations, where we are recognized eventually, just as many organizations are recognized by the UN, and there is a process for doing so. But we would like to ensure that everybody is aware of many of the things being discussed at the international level. So I'm also putting our own Unity Biodiversity Network, since we are very much focused on what we call regenerative development. So as we move forward with what we call our legacy projects here in Markham, we've already begun having a conversation with the 7th Generation Initiative. There's a gentleman by the name of Brian Popa, also Dr. Jose Echeverry, who's at York University. He's with what's called 7th Generation GTB, or 7th Generation Markham. And so we are attempting to establish a local team here. So we hope that we can meet with the founder, Susan Bozak, as well as Charles Hopkins, the UNESCO chair in reorienting education towards sustainability. And they have their office also at York University. So I noted before, we also would like to have a conversation with the founders and leaders of the Maple Leaf Center for Action on Food Security, which is, again, here in Ontario. Again, there are some links in the chat to the 7th Generation Initiative and the 7th Generation GTB projects, which you'll find information, especially about people like Joe Brewer. You'll also find in the chat a link to the bio of faculty fellow in the environment and urban change at the Delilah Institute for Global Health Research at York University, Dr. Jose Echeverry. And then Dr. Echeverry is also a co-founder of the Sustainable Energy Initiative at York University, as well as the International Renewable Energy Academy, which was set up quite a few years ago as well. And you'll find links in the chat to the UNESCO Chair in Reorienting Education towards Sustainability, as well as additional information about other organizations or other institutes here in Markham, specifically Seneca College and their faculties and schools, because we are not only hoping to partner with York, we are hoping to partner with all of the schools, including the college and the high schools and the school boards as well. And finally, you will find the Maple Leaf Center for Action on Food Security, their website, which has information there. So again, today is Thursday, March 9th, 2023. Not really a special day in UN calendar, but yesterday was International Women's Day. That was quite important. Many messages went back and forth about that on our network especially. And this whole week from Monday to Friday, March 6th to 10th is known as SDG Week Canada, being hosted by SDSN Canada at the University of Waterloo. Also being co-hosted by the Sustainability Hub at the University of British Columbia, along with Colleges and Institutes Canada. And coming up later this month is also Earth Hour at 8:30 p.m. in all time zones on Saturday, March 25th, which is also intended to be the date of the Earth Show on the International Day of Remembrance of the Victims of Slavery and the Transatlantic Slave Trade. And although these days that I'm going to say here are not recognized in the UN calendar, they are fun events to consider celebrating in our own personal lives. So today is actually National Meatball Day. Tomorrow, March 10th, is National Women and Girls HIV/AIDS Awareness Day in the US. March 11th is Johnny Appleseed Day, which celebrates John Chapman, better known as Johnny Appleseed, who was an American pioneer nurseryman who introduced apple trees to large parts of Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and also here in present-day Ontario, as well as in the northern counties of present-day West Virginia. So he became an American legend while still alive due to his kind, generous ways, his leadership in conservation, and the symbolic importance of it he attributed to apples. He was also a missionary for the New Church and the inspiration for many museums and historical sites, such as the Johnny Appleseed Museum in Urbana, Ohio. Following this is March 12th, is called Plant a Flower Day and Genealogy Day, and is also the time for changing our clocks or daylight saving time for those who still do it. March 13th is National Canine Veterans Day. March 14th is National Pie Day, Learn About Butterflies Day, and the National Potato Chip Day. And one day before our next IGU Summit event is March 15th, also known as the Ive March. But I will put in just some links for people to observe and understand what are all these different holidays and events that we could potentially celebrate throughout the year on these different days, which are recognized in some countries, recognized by some peoples, but are sometimes more fun events than anything. Of course, there's International Women's Day, which is recognized in the UN calendar, as you can see in the link to un.org. But also there's, as I said, Johnny Appleseed Day, and Genealogy Day, and of course, Daylight Savings Time coming up in the middle of this month. And then It's interesting in the US, National Canine Veterans Day. You'll find a link to military.com. National Pie Day, which was celebrated initially by this gentleman, Larry Shaw, who was an employee of the San Francisco, California Science Museum. And then there's Learn About Butterflies Day, which again aligns with our focus on nature. And National Potato Chip Day, which is kind of fun, but recognized because it celebrates what they call America's #1 snack food, potato chips, which have become one of the world's most popular snacks that ever hit the market. And then, of course, there's the Ides of March, which are ominous in some cases, but really have a historical precedent, as can be seen in the chat there under history.com and the links there. So we're still also planning to have a discussion as well with Sir Bailey from youthbuildcharter.org in Los Angeles, Michael Rendler from the C4 Group, our climate smart community construction collaborative, where we hope to also talk with people like Lynn Crandall, Marcella Olivia, and Isaac Sebachke about our next Earth Fest, which I'm hoping they are planning, but we hope to participate as well somehow. We want to co-host this hybrid event with the UnityNet, GTA, and BodNet partners, and all of the Wikipod collaborators, where we hope that this event will also help spark the imagination of young people, teachers, and their parents and elders who are working with the local learners at our schools here in Markham and the York region here in the GTA. So we can empower them to take action through the Global Sister Schools program, starting with the planting of our youth peace gardens, where we also hope to work in close collaboration with all the members of UnityNet Ontario and UnityNet Canada, including the co-founder of the Indigenous Global Unity Network, which is Michael Schur, who'd also like us to begin having a conversation about practical reconciliation, starting with the development of a curriculum related to his Indigenous Unity flag. Specifically, he wants us to establish a legacy education project that he'd like us to do in solidarity with Indigenous peoples, possibly also with Scouts Canada or Scouts Europe, hopefully with more partners like Rotary International, as they seek to implement an Indigenous Unity badge for young people who are participating in their programs, where we can partner with the local schools, especially the schools of arts, schools of architecture, and others in our local communities across our network, where we can host a series of virtual and in-person charrettes and help Michael and the Scouts come up with the curriculum, hopefully over the next few months, where the curriculum would also help young people understand that every country has their own Indigenous peoples, that we must become compassionate members of a global society of humans, and as an essential part of a process of real reconciliation. So the key people who we have for these projects are the members of the Unity Learning Network and the Global Sister Schools program, and of course, any others who may wish to contribute to this process and the efforts. So I do want to mention as well, Andrip Day, Earth Day. This is our Drumming at City Hall's event, where we do drumming with Indigenous peoples, hopefully. This is the day we also engage with the students at our local schools and start planning and building their own, so they can start planning and building their own local youth peace gardens at their own local schools and in their communities with their various community partners. So again, you'll see a link in the chat to our published 100th Day event for Earth Day. So this there is a link to Earth Day as well, the information about that event. This, as I mentioned, there's 5 key events. Still working on this one, UnityNet World Biodiversity Day 2023. This would be what we call a Plan Your Youth Peace Garden ceremony. So they would be in-person events, all of these. So on this day, 2 weeks ahead of our Abraham Project World Environment Day, June 5th event, We bring together all of the local students and their parents and their families to get them participating in planning their youth peace garden ceremonies. So we'll go over things like logistics, who to invite, drafting an invitation letter, issuing a press release. This will be an outdoor event in one of our local public parks, hopefully with our local counselor and others in the community like Rotary Markham. So here in the city of Markham, we'll likely do it in Leechcroft Park, which is an 8-acre park with the shelters and a splash pad. And we'll also be able to do our Bubble Fun Festival events there in August, if all works out well. So we do want to use this event to promote the rest of our Drawdown Markham events, including the IGU summits and these networks that we're creating, and get young people, schools and teachers and parents and their grandparents as well involved, the people in Markham, York Region and Greater Toronto, involved in these conversations about that we are having within UnityNet. Engage the schools and their teachers and their families in a competition and related learning program to design their own bubble fun machines. So our goal is to have a few working bubble fun machines by August, created by some entrepreneurial students from some of these local high schools in our region. So I'll also be creating an Eventbrite page for World Biodiversity Day. So the invitation will read something like how to design and build a productive food garden that maximizes nutrition and maximizes potential to protect and restore biodiversity within our own bioregion and watersheds. So again, you'll find in the chat some links, for instance, to the UnityNet South Markham Community Food Security Network, established by one of our colleagues, Michael, here in Drawdown Markham. You'll find the links to Drawdown Markham in our public network and the related Markham Climate Smart Gardens Network, which was originally created to support our colleague Joan Kerr at the Foundation for Building Communities in Oshawa, but we're hoping to now leverage that for our local projects. Again, as we move forward with the events, we have our Abraham Project Tree of Peace and Reconciliation tree planting ceremonies. This is World Environment Day. We did this last year again in Mississauga. The event on June 5th is where we plant the trees of peace and reconciliation. And in some communities, we raise those Indigenous unity flags in celebration and ceremony at these youth peace gardens that we'll hopefully have our young people build in their own local communities, possibly at their own local schools, and with the rest of the community members. So it's on this day where we create the INAB collaboratives, our local empowerment networks for those humanitarian entrepreneurs in our local communities, where the INAB collaboratives are cooperative entities, co-ops that form the backbone of our network of networks. So again, you'll find in the chat just a link to the World Environment Day. We don't yet have our Eventbrite page up yet for that particular event. But we did do it last year, so it should go up fairly quickly since we've done it before. So internationally, coordinated Bubble Fun Festivals is the next event that takes place in August. The date for our Bubble Fun Festivals intended to be not just local, but global, coordinated across multiple countries. We want you to keep this event date open. This will be likely August 12th on Saturday, which is the International Youth Day. So this is where we come together, celebrate our local communities and the process of what we call celebrating our diversity and localizing our communities as equals in our own communities, where we're again coordinating these globally. So we're doing it, the coordination through what we call virtual sharing, just as we are on a Zoom call today. We can do similar things where we get together personally on the ground in our communities, but we maybe have somebody with a camera that can be connected to the internet, where people can also interact with the people on the ground doing these events. So this is where we recognize virtual sharing, where each one of us human beings in our local communities recognizes those around the world who are also localizing the global goals through the development of the partnerships in our local communities. and also globally, where each one of us helps to ensure that our local humanitarian entrepreneurs are empowered by the members of our AHIABGA collaboratives. So this takes place again during the Indigenous Unity Weeks, starting on International Day of Indigenous People, which is August 9th, ending on World Humanitarian Day, which is what is that day? I forget. I think it's the 16th. And then International Youth Day would be like the date of the event, which is Saturday. And so we also have the Youth Peace Weeks, from Global Cooperation Day to World Food Day, which is October 4th to 16th. So it is during these Youth Peace Weeks where we'll do some edutainment programs. So this is both in-person events here in the city of Markham, in the region of York, and from across Ontario, Canada, but especially from the Rouge and Don watershed to the Great Lakes Basin here on Turtle Island. Again, in partnership with our members of the local communities, including the schools and Indigenous people here in the Greater Toronto area, where we also work with schools, again, like York University, Seneca College, the local schools, teachers from the Catholic and the secular school boards seek to work in with our UnityNet members from Drawdown Markham and our partnerships through that organization, especially as we create this local INAP collaborative here in the GTA. So we are seeking to create at least 5, but as many as 25 of these local empowerment networks in each of our local communities over the next few years. With it, we'd like to see if at least 3 can be created by the end of 2023 here in Markham, where I am, along with Vaughan and Richmond Hill. So the INAP Collaborative Cooperative Empowerment Networks for our local young people and the humanitarian entrepreneurs are those who are localizing the global goals here in Markham, Greater Toronto, Ontario, Canada, again, in the Great Lakes Basin of Lake Ontario, Turtle Island. So I'd like to ask everybody, again, join us through Drawdown Markham, UnityNet GTA, and we have groups for Ontario and Canada. And if you are living in another part of the country or in another country or even on another continent like Africa, join our UnityNet CTP program so we can coordinate our activities and partner with you and your local community through each of our local INAP collaborative teams. So again, you'll find information about Global Cooperation Day, October 4th, World Food Day, which is October 16th in the chat. And I do want to mention as well that another event we'd like to do, this one is not in person, but a virtual event. We have done it a couple of times. The first time was actually an in-person event down in Toronto, in St. Jamestown, Toronto, where we planted our first tree of peace and reconciliation in that city. This was actually an event we did during the pandemic at the beginning of the 2020 pandemic, COVID-19, but we did this Sunlight Spectacle hybrid edutainment event. We did it at that time in the summer during a solar eclipse. So we do follow each solar eclipse that passes over territories around the world at certain times of the year in the calendar. So Sunlight Spectacle October 2023 is an annular eclipse that will be visible from the US, specifically from Oregon and Texas, as well as Mexico, Central America, South America, and in Brazil. So one final event that I am hopeful that we can do is this Sunlight Spectacle. Following this eclipse on October 14th, it is visible from Dune City, Oregon, all the way through the northeast corner of California to Rio Grande do Norte, Brazil, where's the last people that can see this. So during this Sunlight Spectacle event, we do these edutainment events where we send messages of unity, peace, hope, self-reliance, sovereignty, sustainability, forgiveness, and regeneration of our planet and society. So the messages we send out, hopefully through music, are done in ways that focus on not just jobs and the economy, but also education and training that we want to deliver around regenerative development, and the learning infrastructure that we hope to establish in each local community to help uplift people with dignity, where the process and results of the learning is all about what we call practical reconciliation. So again, you'll find this link in the chat, Sunlight Spectacle event. The timeanddate.com shows the path of the eclipse and where it is crossing over in all of these countries, which we hope to involve as many local communities in all of these countries as is possible. So I do want to mention just very quickly, and let's just run off. Let me just turn that off. Sorry. That this page I do like to show, and I think this is probably where I can finalize this presentation today. I was designated as a Goodwill Ambassador for the 5 Points Youth Foundation in Los Angeles. I do have a portfolio that covers Canada, La Francophonie, the Commonwealth of Nations, and Turtle Island communities. So as a member of the AHIABGA International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors and Activists, we are seeking to empower our communities to engage with Royal, Indigenous, and tribal leadership, as well as helping local communities establish these interfaith neighborhood academic and business collaboratives, these INAD collaboratives, that come together and pledge to support all of the local humanitarian entrepreneurs who are globalizing these global goals, these SDGs, starting with those 17 goals. But we are also seeking ways to leave no one behind. So I do want to put in the chat this connection to the AHIABGA International Advisory Board. You can find more information about that. But I do want to mention as well, just so it's part of the recording, maybe I'm not in the right order here, but our primary sponsor that I do give recognition to is Andrew Networks. We call our door opening network the Global Unity Network of Networks. So we're being hosted by Andrew on these weekly Thursday Zoom calls. These are going to take place until December 2023, so until the end of this year. So he does also host additional events like those Youth Peace Week events and Toronto and Markham monthly events that we do, along with doing promotional support services and rebroadcasting any production-ready presentations or other citizen media with the theme of localization, re-indigenization, resilience, local implementation of the SDGs. He does this on the AHIABGA.org domain, being redirected to a number of other social media sites like UCITTV and others, where Andrew is a brand and domain name owned by Parks DC Export Trading Company, comprising various social media channels like TRN TV, Universal Citizens Media Networks, Conversations with Andrew Williams Jr., and many others, where Andrew Networks is not only our primary sponsor supporting the promotional ecosystem for this UnityNet initiative of the Indigenous Global Unity Summits, but we are also calling Andrew our Yes, Yes, Yes partner, who's helping to open doors so that members of our network are able to discover their inner selves and passions, where Andrew is working with the people who occupy the various nodes of our network so they can come together with the people of the network, acting like a net to support their dreams. And so they can leverage those passions, transform their visions of a better future for themselves and their communities into a reality that makes sense for themselves and their communities, however they might define what that better future is collectively as they seek to work together in partnership and leave no one behind. So again, you'll find links to Andrew here, and maybe there we go. So this is the Andrew's logo, so we can all see Andrew Networks. So we should have this here since he has been supporting us since our first IGU Summit event, which took place in 2021. So we're again week 92 of doing this every week. So as we move forward, maybe I should mention around the INAP collaboratives. We are establishing at the local level. We're leveraging our process of community engagement, which includes the Trees of Peace and Reconciliation, the tree planting and flag raising ceremonies, followed by ongoing community engagement, interaction through regularly scheduled events throughout the year, the coordinated Bubble Fun festivals, which can also include sports and dancing and arts, done in collaboration with the local INAP collaborative members. The CTP program for twinning communities, such as community organized tree plantings and other local regenerative and public community infrastructure development projects and events. This is basically what we are going to talk about today. We also have Tea Diplomacy Initiative. So this is both in-person and virtual community conversations on topics like peace, regeneration, reconciliation, and forgiveness. We are partnered with Global Peace Let's Talk, which is a UK-based organization. We also have a Dream Boards initiative done in collaboration with the C4 group and their members and others, along with identification of and engagement with local talent, artists and creative people in what we call the Orange Economy, for the purpose of promoting and showcasing not just their talent, but also their talent as they promote their art through the promotion of the globalization of global goals and the achievement of this, what we call productive, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind, especially again during our periodic Sunlight Spectacle and other edutainment events that are done throughout the year. So we are open to doing other programs and activities that developed in the context of the Climate Smart Gardens and Forests and the Climate Smart Kitchens, Wheel of Life Farms, and these what we call CSAF centers, or Climate Smart Ag and Food Training Centers, also known as Spark Learning Centers or Climate Smart Learning Centers. So again, you'll find some links to relevant networks in our network of networks. For instance, the International Bubble Fun Festivals Network, the Bubble Fun Sports Network, the Coordinated Bubble Fun Festivals Network, the networks for coordinating our activities around the world are all intended eventually to be brought on what we call the Interchange for Peace VCN, which is what we call a virtual collaborative network, where we're using the example of a commercial network called Youth Expo, which we have also been promoting. If you look at our Eventbrite page, you will find that they are an example of a virtual collaborative network. So we also have our Green Boards network as well, where we're hoping to work in every community to establish actual dream boards with our local schools and young people who could design virtual reality spaces on these metaverse networks, so they can visualize what their communities might look like with all of this regenerative infrastructure. So I do want to go to details a little bit about some of the things we're doing. So I should be going back to this previous page. So we do two main things as we move forward. We do focus on what's called values-driven digital and community transformation. So the first thing we're doing, focusing on creating community partnerships. So these are the INAP collaboratives, the ultimate purpose of which is facilitating the creation of community-based cooperative humanitarian enterprise teams, consisting of young people and families in local communities who are seeking to implement local regenerative solutions for achieving these global goals. Second, we're helping to facilitate the local establishment of regenerative community Unity Garden learning hubs, spaces in all of our local communities that we call Unity Gardens. The spaces are places for educating and training young people and families in all of these local communities to become localized, regenerative, climate smart, humanitarian, food producer entrepreneurs who will be delivering local solutions for food and climate and peace and social justice using the latest and controlled environment regenerative production solutions that can be integrated into any type of communities, whether urban, suburban, or rural. So along with leveraging a number of digitally integrated social and business tools that facilitate the collaboration, along with local community engagement and facilitating local income generation for the local community members of our network, so they can become more resilient, begin to adapt to the changing global climate that's of course affecting their own local watersheds and the ability to produce abundance from their own local productive resources, including from their soils and water and energy resources, which of course we want to promote renewables. So I'd like to get into the nitty-gritty a little bit. As an example, in the city of Markham, I believe I may be a step ahead here. Gotten out of sync between my let's just go down here. Okay. So what I would like to mention though is the importance of the INAP collaboratives as the efforts of a private sector initiative among humanitarian entrepreneurs. This is not a program of the UN, so don't mistake just because we are promoting the UN events and some of their programs does not mean that we are in any way affiliated with the UN. This is a climate movement that is moving forward, but taking in order to take climate action to achieve drawdown. Most of the programs that have been implemented so far have been captured by the oil industry interests. So if we just look at COP27 meeting, which was captured by corporations like Coca-Cola, and where fossil fuel industry lobbyists basically came forward and really dominated that particular event. What I would like to do though is mention as well that what we are trying to do here is to establish these Unity Garden Learning Centers in each community. We'd like to move forward. It starts with the establishment of these youth peace gardens. And as we move forward on infrastructure development, what we really need to be doing is engaging our communities. So this is why we have all of our cultural events, working with the artists, working with the cultural institutions to really engage people in the local communities in this process of localization, in this process of practical reconciliation. So we have a long history. I can put a number of links into the chat for all of the people who are interested in this, but what I will do after this call as well is to publish this presentation in full with all of the links to all of these different events and parts of our network. But most important thing, of course, is that what we need to be having is this conversation around how do we move forward in terms of creating the partnerships. I'm just looking at the clock, seeing it's 12 noon. I had set myself in trying to at least get most of the introduction to what we're doing begun in the first hour, so we can begin this conversation among the members who are on this call after the initial presentation. So this again is our network we are building. This is a few nodes just to show that we have a number of nodes. We are building this network on social media. We have 3 main platforms: WhatsApp for discussions, Facebook for community, building communities on social media as an open networks, and as well we're using LinkedIn for professional engagement to really involve people who are already professionals in whatever field they're working in. So we have, for each one of these, you'll see, for instance, the Learning Network. We'll have a WhatsApp discussion group, a Facebook group, and a LinkedIn group as well. So we have actually probably something like 50 of those networks with this purpose to support, uplift, and empower all the members of our network, especially these what we call female and feminist humanitarian entrepreneurs who are globalizing these global goals utilizing these regenerative solutions, these regenerative open source regenerative infrastructure solutions, which are what we want to eventually demonstrate in our local communities as these Unity Garden learning centers in cooperation and collaboration with our local schools, as well as all of these different partners. So this, again, humanitarian entrepreneurship really means entrepreneurship, entrepreneurs who are implementing solutions to achieving those global goals, which is the SDGs currently. And so we want what we call WIL programs, work integrated learning. So these are practical places where entrepreneurs can actually generate income, where we're going to demonstrate regenerative financing, but where young people especially and students can gain their degrees through this practical work they're doing in their communities. So this is actually why we want to work with York University. They have a fairly extensive program of work integrated learning. And Dr. Etcheverry there is doing much of that work. And again, open source regenerative climate smart infrastructure basically means the gardens, forests, farms, kitchens, and these what we call pod buildings, solar roof buildings, as a regenerative type of regenerative infrastructure that we've been promoting also for the past couple of years. So solar roof is a patented technology, but that patent is or has been put on the public domain, open source, but is only available to members of that network. So there is a system of sharing that, just as open source software does similar things, where the practitioners who use and develop that software are able to access the open source code in the case of software, but in this case, the designs of buildings are placed on open source within that particular network. So those who join can get access to that, to those designs, those infrastructure designs for the buildings, so they can reproduce them, and they can also change them to their own local circumstances. So again, we're using Fourth Industrial Revolution tools, which basically means Internet of Things and Internet, next generation Internet, like metaverse spaces. But we do seek to incorporate Indigenous knowledge as well. So again, an example of some of our networks, but we are really focused on these interfaith neighborhood academic and business collaboratives really as the basis for our entire network, which again is intended to empower those humanitarian entrepreneurs. We're establishing these learning centers, which can be established again in partnership with all those community members, but will serve to continuously educate every new young generation of young people coming through the school system. Not necessarily at the schools, but could be a separate facility that serves multiple schools in that community, where all the young people will hopefully, along with their parents and even their grandparents and across generations, learning about these solutions. So again, what else we want to do is this Grandmother Bubble Fund Multicultural Festival. This again during Indigenous Unity Weeks in August. So we are actually, that's another conversation we'll likely need to have separately, trying to establish these grandmothers network as well to support our young people, the Indigenous grandmothers. So this was the example of our INAB collaborative here in Markham. So these are the entities that we're hoping to engage in. So again, the City of Markham, you'll see in the top corner here, the business, the Board of Trade, as an example of the business communities. York University, I mentioned, Seneca College,
Lloyd, can I interrupt
and
for a
others.
second?
Yes.
Lloyd, you put out so much information, and I really get totally confused. And before I express my confusion, I just want to point out again that you didn't mention the vernal equinox, March 21st, which is important to every Indigenous community around the world.
Okay, that's good. I
And
see
you
that
also, I know you mentioned so many, but for like, I am where I am, and March 21st and March 22nd are key days in my life. So I don't want to impose it on you, but you are representing the international Indigenous community. And
no, I'm actually not.
well, you ought to be. You ought to be. If you don't think you are, then you better.
I am a
you
settler.
better make that
and
public.
I am a settler, and what we are doing is trying to create a partnership with Indigenous peoples.
Well, then let's. I see Douglas Jack is here. I don't know if his picture is not there, but Douglas Jack is connection with the Mohawk.
Yes.
I approached him maybe 10, 15 years ago, and I'd like to ask him, or you know, what do the Mohawk have to do with this initiative? And is Douglas here representing the Mohawk, or what? You know, and it is the there's a conflict between the Mohawks of Montreal and the Mohawks of the rest of Ontario. And I wonder if the Mohawks are involved, and whether or not in an interfaith initiative, whether or not we include the Indigenous people and the Mohawks. That's just sort of a natural question.
Well, the reason I raised my hand, Lloyd, is perhaps this is a perfect time to take an interlude and introduce your guests, at least a minute for each, and then you can proceed to your question and answer if your presentation is through or not. Perhaps you could complete your presentation, pausing your record.
Thank you, Andrew. So I'm just writing a quick thing in the chat just on Mitch's comments, which I appreciate that he always is focusing on the Indigenous communities. Of course, as I said, we are, for the most part, the settlers. So what we would like to do, however, is promote, or maybe not promote, but to facilitate the what we call practical reconciliation, to move forward with Indigenous peoples and help to implement those two covenants, in particular the dish with one spoon and the two-row wampum covenant.
No. We want to promote UNDRIP.
Well, you want to promote UNDRIP, which absolutely UNDRIP should be promoted as well, but in some cases, and I have heard this from Indigenous people, they are not supporting the UNDRIP.
Well, we ought to be, the Markham Board of Trade, the York University, all these Rotary, they all ought to be helping.
Excuse me, Lloyd, I removed Mitch Gold. So
yes,
as I said before, if you either take this interlude, because you've been going for an hour complete yourself in a monologue, but you do have guests here who have not been introduced. So I suggest that you take this opportunity to take a break, stop sharing your screen, and allow those people here to introduce themselves at least for 2 minutes each is what I recommend.
Okay, we'll do that. So I'm going to stop my share here and we'll get on the screen here. So if anybody would like to introduce themselves, I'm hoping actually Douglas, if you're able to do so.
You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to defer to Alain.
Correct.
And give him my time,
Correct.
just because he's got a very tight schedule.
Correct.
He's working on things that are very pressing, and if Alain can describe a little bit of what he's up to.
Please do, Elaine. Thank you so much for your patience too. You've been there for the beginning, and also for anyone else here that's not been introduced, they will be the first. But Elaine, please take the floor. Thank you.
Yeah, I was indeed the first. I was waiting for the thing to start. Okay, so well, my name is Alain Farmer. I'm fully bilingual, like through and through. My surname is in French, and my family name is in English. So I kind of like it that way too. And also, yeah, I've done a lot of like farming, gardening, and so on and so forth. Community gardens for the most part, collective gardens. I did some on some farms, and now there's a community garden here that I'm in charge of. In fact, I'm the coordinator of the community garden right now. And we'll get to like much of that later, but since I've moved here, actually, I've become the development agent of the community. What that means specifically, it started out, is that I animate activities to get people to get out of their houses and join together, develop some relationships, some friendships, and to overcome like that 2-year thing that we just went by, you know, among other things, you know. And so, yeah, we need to animate people, get them out, get in relationships, because building community for me, the starting point is getting people to know each other and to actually connect with each other before we can even envisage like education programs and software and so on and so forth, which is all great, you know. And I'm a technological person. I used to love that approach, you know, but we'll get to it in the details. But after my whole life has taught me now that it's like, okay, first we build the community with real relationships, then we can empower certain functionalities with software or with guides or whatever. And as it's felt, the need is felt, because if we arrive with a big package, they're just going to be overwhelmed. And just a little sidebar, I don't want to be insulting, but I must admit, I was a little bit overwhelmed by your presentation. That's a lot of information.
Well, we've been working on it for more than a year already, and it just keeps growing and growing. And I'm trying to keep it down, which is why I say it's only 5 events.
Well,
Yeah.
Elaine, unless you're in a rush, you can slow down. There's no need to rush. It's up to you. But please, we do have people whose English is not their first language. So I appreciate it if you take your time to be as coherent as you can.
I see.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, because I tend, in all these forums and so on and so forth, there tends to be not enough time for everyone to fully express.
You have time. Take the time.
I tend to speed up the rhythm a little bit just to get more in.
I understand.
Okay, I'll slow down.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm development agent. First, I'm starting with activities. And we have projects as well that I will not manage exactly, coordinate. So we've got the collective gardens, we got the marché public, how do you say that? Public marketplace for locally grown food and so on and so forth. And we have a food bank that I'm really glad to find out that I didn't have to make any necessary moves to do it. We have a grocery store in town. Well, in fact, I'm in a town of 815 people, and we have a grocery store, which is really great. Not all small towns have one. And anyway, so the groceries, whatever they don't sell, they give to the food bank. And now we've also gotten into a program with the volunteers of the Océ François, which is our MRC, and they call it frigo partage, shared refrigerator, if I translate it. And there's a lot of this in Montreal. It's a known program, and the refrigerator's out of doors all year round, even in the winter. So it's in a shed, and so people can free access without any papers to fill in. Simply come and pick up some food or leave some food for other people. And in fact, through the legal things of that, I don't want to get into too many details, but with the Good Samaritan rule, okay, well, we can actually provide food that's been cooked and prepared or preserves or anything. And normally there's rules about, food that's been prepared. But in the food bank's case and in this refrigerator's case, we're absolved of those rules. Of course, we're going to be very responsible about the food that's there. Anyways, I don't want to get too much into the food, but it is one of my big things. So l'autonomie alimentaire, food autonomy. We're communauté nourricière, what do you say, a food creating community. So we've planted fruit trees and like small stuff like raspberries, camaris, blueberries, that kind of thing. And it's open to anyone to just come by and pick whatever they want to pick. And so with the food bank, the gardens and the collective things, and there's activities as well, like in the spring, we go out into the forest and with some animators, we say, okay, well, this you can pick and eat, you know, and so on. We're starting to do that. And I'm a gardener, and yeah, so I'll be making some activities this spring. Say, okay, now we're starting to grow from seeds. Okay, well, the exchange of seeds is happening now, and it's already happened a little bit. But then we all grow a little too much from seeds because we're not sure if it'll sprout. So in fact, then we have too many plants, you know, to put into our gardens. So then there's a second exchange activity that I'm programming that will allow people to exchange plants, and so that everyone has a large diversity of things. We don't have to grow everything. There'll be like a whole partnership around. And we're also in a banque de semences. We're in this group where we share seeds, in fact, and we're encouraged to grow things all the way beyond the fruiting to the seed bearing stage, and collect those seeds and give them back and share them back, in fact. So we create a large biodiversity of seeds that grow well in this environment. That's a very, very important thing, is that it's the stuff that really grows well that we want them to, okay, if it grows well, make sure you bring it to seed, some of it, so that we can share that, you know? So, okay, that's food, but there's also, as development agent, I don't only do food, you know, I pretty much touch upon everything that touches development. And I've noticed, well, and I'm also introducing it into this municipality, the need to adapt to climate change, to make the environmental shift, and things like that, you know, like that they weren't necessarily thinking about, or there's more and more pressure in that direction, though. There's a lot more programs and subsidies to help people do the transition, you know, and so it's encouraging. But people don't know all the programs, and even the people in this municipality, they're busy doing the day-to-day stuff, like the snow removal and so on and so forth. They don't have time to plan so much for the future. Okay, so that's my job, in fact, as a development agent. I'm supposed to anticipate some of the future trends in society that might be of interest to us, and then find out about them, present these information in concise, summarized format for the elected officials. If they agree to the idea, then I go get the financing with their permission, and we get the projects done. So one of the projects that I came up with, well, as searching for, well, okay, I'm going a little fast. All right. Well, I was mandated at one point with the Développement Durable, big subsidy, in fact, with Action Concertée in it. I don't know how much time I have, but this is a very interesting subsidy. It's called Développement Durable et Action Concertée. So Development Durable, you will catch on to that, right? How do you say that in English again? Sustainable development. Yeah, and Action Concertée is that, well, we don't want to just develop in a vacuum with like a small group of people making the decisions that don't end up being an adequation or well adapted to all the other players. What we'd say call stakeholders, and in French we call parties prenantes. So the approach, and strangely enough, it's the government that's currently in power that's developed this. They say, well, you got to get everyone, in democratically speaking, you have to get everyone that's involved, let's say, or affected by the decision, to participate in the decision. So if Indigenous people are affected by this decision, they need to be on the committee that not only is being consulted, but is in fact piloting the project. So together with the Indigenous and other stakeholders like entrepreneurs and local people and the municipality and the citizens too, we're all get together. So we decide, where's this path going to go, and what kind of amenities are they going to be? And of course it has to be ecological, respect like the wetlands and, you know, protected areas and protected trees and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of stakeholders involved, in fact, including engineers and the government and governmental programs related to respecting the environment and so on. So it's a large, huge amount of stakeholders in that project. Meanwhile, I'm doing some of the research to find out, well, how do you build a path anyways? And what kind of services are available? And I come across this thing called chaussée désignée, okay? It's, chaussée is in English, oh shit. Anyways, it doesn't really matter what the translation is, I guess, but in essence, I can take an existing roads, okay, and transform them into a bike path by just putting up a few signs saying, this road is being shared with bicycles, so please be careful, and they have priority. And the speed limit must not be too high, but we're going through little country roads anyway, so the speed limit's really low, and there can't be too much traffic on that road, which there isn't any at all. And the thing is that now we're in a small town with just two main roads, like the 257 and the 212, and people are expected to ride their bicycles on these roads. And it's kind of dangerous. You can be sideswiped by a car and end up in an 8-foot ditch, you know? It's really not safe, in fact. But now I found a way at little or no cost to have a path from La Patrie, which is where I am, all the way to the next municipality about 17 kilometers away. And it's a bike path and so on and so forth, and it costs practically nothing. So, you know, it's knowing about the programs and about the subsidies and so on and so forth, and being the idealist I am. Just come back to me a little bit, because I'm going into a lot of details here, but I used to be an activist. You know, I was in Occupy Montreal. I was with the students, you know, helping them with their protests and so on and so forth. And at the time, I did this thing called an atrium, which was I was trying to bring together all the different aspects of like energy, food, and collaboration into one big package. And then I brought them the software, the huge, beautiful machine that I produced for them, and they all just like got indigestion. You know, to make a long story short. And they never really bought into it, or had no community build from there. It's like, so in essence, we got to start with the community, like I was saying in the beginning, and then bring in the functions as we need them. So I learned it from them. So, but now it's really funny because I was an activist and I was protesting and the whole bit, but then I got involved with the politics in Montreal, in Verdun particularly, Le Verdun que nous voulons and other programs. And I realized, well, Montreal and even in Verdun, it's so big. There's so many big players, career politicians, and so on and so forth. It's really hard to make some kind of impact. And you have like 2 minutes for your question, and that's it. They cut you off, and you know, it's very hard to make any real, you know, collaboration with the city because it's just too big. So talking about communities, and Doug's community is already a few thousand people living where he lives. That's already large, actually. And I'm in a small town of 815 people. It's really the ideal place to do this. And in fact, I already know all the people here, and I've only been here for 1.5 years. They know me, I know them, we've done stuff together, and we've already got a lot of the social stuff going. And in fact, now I'm a municipal employee. So in fact, I'm in the system right now and saying, well, what can we do? You know, like from within the system. No, I'm not elected, so I'm not the one making the final decisions or anything like that, but they have no time for development, no time to think about the future. So they're saying, hey, Alain, take care of our future for us. Okay, great. You know, like that's amazing. You know, and so I'm coming up with ideas and finding the funding for it, and often the funding is pushing us in the right direction, saying, yeah, we want durable development, yeah, we want to be less greenhouse gases and adapt to climate change. Yes, yeah, why not? So I'm saying, as one of the representatives of this community called La Patrie, I'm not presently speaking on behalf of them. I'm not officially a delegate today, but I'm saying, like, we develop the ideas and the collaboration and so on and so forth. I'll make a concise summary of it. I'll present it to them. I'm very persuasive. So I'll get them to buy into most of what I'm suggesting to them, especially if I tell them, look, there's money attached too. And like, there's no problem. It'll cost you practically nothing. And they'll be like, well, yeah, why not? You know, and they trust me and so on and so forth. So I'm like a spy, you know? So insurgents, actually, I should say, but in a very kind way. I don't see them as the enemy. You know, I see them as well-meaning, constructive people, but caught up in the systemic pressures where things don't get done for one reason or another. And with a lot of patience and a lot of work, we'll finally get these things done. So I'll wrap up on this since I've been talking for quite a while now. But yeah, I'm in a position now that I have at my disposal the resources of the community. We have a community center, we have a municipal center, we have 3 available kitchens for collective thing. We have a collective garden, a community garden, where there's still about 20 places available, you know, and so on and so on. I mean, and then I can get budgets and we can manage it and form committees and we can have an online presence and so on and so forth. So I have at my disposal what I need to animate this community. So now I just have to do the animating part, which is no small task.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time.
So, well, this is exactly why I'm getting excited by just listening to you, what you're saying, because I'm hoping again that and I wrote down a lot of the stuff. I put it in the chat just as you were talking, just for my own notes as well. But I'm hoping that, again, we can establish this partnership. It's, again, not between the city of Markham and the town of La Patrie, or the municipality there. It's between the INAB collaborative in Markham and the INAB collaborative in La Patrie. So it's a collaboration between those partnerships. So we create a partnership between all the stakeholders in Markham. We create a partnership between all the stakeholders in La Patrie who want to be involved in doing these events and projects.
Basically, we'd both be autonomous and
Right.
simply consult each other, share
share ideas,
the good moves and the bad moves,
and coordinate our activities, coordinate our events. So we both do an event on World Environment Day. We both do an event on like in April and May, and we both do an event on the same day.
No problem
virtually,
with that. That's
but
easy.
in person and virtually. That's what we call hybrid events, right? So we now, like, if we have a Bubble Fun Festival in August, we would do one here, you would do one there, and we would link it together by Zoom, just like what we're doing today or something like that. And we would,
that'd be fun.
the idea in the future is that we want to get on this metaverse space that allows us to now do virtual events together at different times of the year. Just like this Sunlight Spectacle event, where we can now have virtual edutainment, what we call edutainment, which is entertainment done like songs that send a message of peace and reconciliation and forgiveness and all of these things, that where we can have a virtual concert on the virtual metaverse space by these artists that are involved. Virtual dancing. I'm looking at Lisa Anise, she's with the UNESCO Dance Council, for instance. So we can now bring our artists into these spaces from our community, from your community. And we can now engage in real time, actively all year long in this whole process of understanding what are the solutions to allow us to achieve those sustainable goals, those regenerative goals, those climate adaptation goals, those community self-sufficiency goals that around food, around water, around energy, like renewable energy or anything like that. Like, what are the local conversations and what are the local solutions? Now let's have this conversation virtually, not just between La Patrie and Markham, but maybe also between community, an INAB collaborative in Los Angeles, and another one in Vancouver where Patrick is, and another one in Vaughan where Stephanie is, and another one in Montreal where Douglas is, and then some other communities in Africa, in South Africa, in Uganda, in Sierra Leone, in Kenya, in Sri Lanka. Now we have all these communities coming together, sharing their ideas, sharing their solutions. And maybe somebody in La Patrie says, I love what they're doing in Sri Lanka. Oh, this is amazing. I want to do that too. And they can
Lloyd,
start having those conversations.
Lloyd, thank you so much. Elaine, thank you so much. I'm sure you hope contact information in the chat. I'm not sure if you ended or began with telling us the name of your organization and if there's a website or not, but I would like to ask you to do that. Lloyd, we do have at least 2 other guests who've never been here before, to the best of my knowledge. So again, I would ask if you would to allow them to introduce themselves for at least 2 minutes. And also then for our other guests, such as Douglas, Jack, Patrick, et cetera. And then perhaps you could proceed if you'd be so kind, Lloyd.
Okay, we'll do that.
Thank
So we've now got a very good comprehensive introduction from Alain. So we can go back to perhaps having Patrick.
No,
introduce himself.
no. We have new
Or-
people here that have never been introduced before. So
Oh, okay.
Najib-
I didn't see that on my screen. I'm seeing Cleveland Joseph and Jerry Shamari.
correct. Yes.
Okay, they
Thank
were
you.
hidden from my view. I just until I
No
clicked.
worries, not mine. So Najiri or Cleveland, would either of you like to unmute and introduce yourself? And we are live streaming, so if you'd like to show your video, you do have that option as well. Or if not, we'll proceed.
So if anybody would like to put up their hand and say a few
hello.
words, that open at this point.
I'm here.
Yeah, there you go.
Please introduce yourself, where you're from, and your organization, if any, and then take a couple of minutes and introduce yourself. Thank you so much.
Who was just speaking earlier? I did hear some sounds. Is that Cleveland?
Yes, it's Cleveland. Yeah.
Okay, there. Hello, Cleveland.
I just get it.
So where are you located?
Ottawa.
Ottawa.
Ottawa. Yes, I'm in
Oh.
Ottawa.
The Ivory Coast, Côte d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast.
I don't get your sound is.
You're from Côte d'Ivoire? That's Ivory Coast, right? The Ivory Coast?
No, Ottawa,
Oh,
Ottawa.
Ottawa.
Canada,
Okay.
Canada.
Okay, very good. Okay, very good. Please
Yeah.
continue. Are you representing an organization or an
Yes,
individual?
you know, I'm
Tell us about
I'm with an organization called I visited two, but called Le Péricile de Dahomey. So we mostly involved in what we want to do to make African religion in a different way to make the people to understand it. Is that we're doing? But the office is located in Montreal. But I can give you my email. Somebody want to get contact with me,
Yes.
and then
Well,
I have
we're
another.
We're glad you're on your computer. In the chat, please type the name of the organization and your email.
I did. Okay.
Very good. Thank you so much. And you don't have to rush. Please speak slowly enough so that we can understand what you're saying clearly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Okay, I do that. So I repeat again. I'm a part of association Le Péricile de Dahomey. It's we mostly French, and what we're doing is to give a new definition, or like to explain to the people how the African religion, what it is, what we think, how people can see it. So what we're doing, we have a meeting like every Sunday with some people, and we do Zoom. We do interview and conference, and we make people to talk about it and to make people aware what we're doing. And we have some book too. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave my email. Somebody want more information, they can write me so we can talk.
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
Yes, well, merci beaucoup.
Okay, merci.
And if you have any website or social media of any kind, that can
Yes,
be shared in
I
the chat
have,
as well.
Yeah.
So Najiri Shamari, are you able to unmute and introduce yourself or not? This is your opportunity if you so choose. Well, Douglas Jack, we're going to default back to you, sir. Thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Douglas, did you wish to say a few more things? Because we started with
Only
with Alain.
when he unmutes are we able to hear Douglas Jack.
Okay. I wanted to add to Alain's experience in terms of, I've known Alain for well over 20, 25 years, something like that.
But first, please say your name and introduce your organization, if any. We have guests here that do not know us. We also have a global audience, so please coherently introduce yourself first, each of you. Thank you.
Douglas Jack, Sustainable Development Association since 1994, Indigent Community since 1983, on all humanities Indigenous heritage. We're focused on community development in accordance with what was called the Guyana Goa, the Great Good Way of Kindness, is really focused on multi-home local economies within the multi-home building, which is the apartment, townhouse, and village clusters that are represented by Indigenous people worldwide. In fact, that these were 100 people or between 50 and 150 people. And by working with the multi-home and the string shell, so the cowrie shell in Africa, the cowrie shell in Europe, Asia, Australia, wampum in North America, Kipu in South America, the Production Society Guilds, the 100-person multi-home, and a way of people working locally within their families, their extended families, their friends. The 100-person unit is a critical mass economy of scale. And it turns out that 70% of people today live in multi-homes which have an average of 32 units or 100 people, which is quite intriguing. The elders from Ganawage were pointing this out to me to say that most of Montreal is actually living in multi-homes, and then with further research, hey, the average size is 32 units or 100 people. So these are the ideal settings that we can re-indigenize the world that we live in today, exactly where we are and where we work as well, because the Indigenous practice is multi-stakeholder participatory. And well, I want to just the last thing I wanted to say was Alain found himself in the position where he just moved down to La Patrie out of love, and so he found himself there. But as this position came up to be a community social and economic development officer, he has a master's in communications, and so he got the job, and it was just a part-time, just to pay the extra, the things that he couldn't afford. And it turns out that connected with the regional council, what he calls the MFC, the regional council of the area, as well as his local hamlet council, he's found himself in an official position, and these official positions have given Alain access, almost direct access to funding, which a lot of us as citizens are not given this access. So, but the model that Alain is part of is actually a very important model for all of us to consider, to understand how it works. And in future talks, Alain will talk more on that. And just wanted to reinforce how important that is.
Well, thank you. Now, Alain, we're offering you or asking you if you schedule a time that you could make a presentation that includes visuals and or video, because we do have a global audience, and I'm sure Lloyd will make time for you any Thursday coming up. But if you'd be so kind, Alain, we would certainly appreciate that.
Sure, why not? Might take a little time though, so not next week, but within the next few weeks, say like, I don't know, by the end of March, maybe beginning of April, because I want to have time to like think through the slides and present and prepare them and so on. I'm an educational technology guy, so I need to make it look, rather good.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because we do have this technology. You can take your time to create the presentation at your own convenience, but it sounds as though this could be something you could use in multiple venues and opportunities. So if you need access to Zoom, or if you need access to any support services we can help provide, we can do that. So there's no rush, but we think it's very important that you provide a coherent presentation that can be expanded throughout our networks. Thank you so much. Back to you, Lloyd.
Yeah, so I wanted to follow up on that as well, and said that likely we already have a number of presenters lined up for the next few weeks for the IGU Summit. So it likely will be April or so that we'll be able to fit you in anyway. So follow up on this afterward, and we will absolutely find you a spot to make a formal presentation during these Thursday events. I'm seeing, who else do we have on the line? I'm seeing Patrick.
If I might add just one little thing very quickly.
Of course, Elaine, go right ahead.
I'm presently prototyping a subsection of what's going to be the website of this municipality to catalog all the activities, the people that want to do volunteer work, and eventually it'll end up being a human resource catalog, a do we know who we are a thing, you know, so that people get to know each other. And I'm presently prototyping it, and I think by April I'll at least have a prototype that I can show you.
Well, wonderful. Keep in mind also, even though it sounds as though you have a relatively small community, it is a community. And while we have these conversations about the Sustainable Development Goals, which is only a 15-year iteration of the Millennium Development Goals, the United Nations Habitat has a 20-year plan from 2016 to 2036 that is a new urban agenda that applies to cities and communities, Elaine. So I encourage you to take a look at that. They have what's called an illustrated new urban agenda handbook, and there's an online course that's free that the residents of your community may find value in familiarizing themselves with the terminology that's being currently used. Also, as you may know, there is a United Nations CFO task force that has only 72 members, but they're responsible for over $1.3 trillion in sourcing, and 50 billion of that is set aside for the Sustainable Development Goals. So what you're doing falls under SDG number 11. So I recommend you think about ways to include that verbiage in your communications so that you can attract those and be a magnet for those organizations that have a commitment to deliver those solutions, but don't have your grassroots outreach. Thank you.
Just one thing, if you could put that in the chat there, that would be very, very kind. Some of those references, because yeah, I have a red carpet when it comes to getting the funding. So I could, you know, it's very, very interesting. And I thank you very much for your offer of resources and help. It's gratitude. It's very nice.
So and this is the also the concept of the INAB collaboratives, as well as these learning spaces that we want to create, the Unity Gardens, is to begin having those conversations, and then creating these focal points, especially through the INAB collaboratives, where the funding can be channeled into these communities. So the INAB collaborative, the Interfaith Neighborhood Academic and Business Collaborative, becomes a cooperative of all these members, and that co-op, being a business, can get financing from anywhere in the world through any programs, whether it's UN Habitat or any of these corporate financing channels, and fund it into the local projects where those projects need to be, where you need to be spending that money. It's the on the ground grassroots people who know where that money it needs to be spent, where it needs to be allocated, who needs to do the work on the ground in that community. And it'll be worked out by that partnership between all the different entities of the community. Okay, so I'm hoping to hear from we have people who we've not heard from yet. Patrick, Heinrich, Stephanie, Njeri, Doris,
And myself.
and I don't see everybody. It's just a few people at the top of the screen. I have to scroll back and forth. So go ahead, Lisa. You're muted right now. Okay.
Yes, I guess I'm on. My name is Lisa Nisatvan. I'm a member of the International Dance Council Division of UNESCO. Something I got drafted into for wanting an after-school program. I build programs. That's what I've done pretty much my entire adult life, starting with the University of Washington, the Pediatric Therapy Project, which vendorized into the largest early intervention program for children with disabilities in the country. And of course, after I moved here, it was, well, the list is very long, but the vast majority had to deal with people with a variety of an array of disabilities. And at one point in time, we were doing a short lecture circuit with groups that worked in corporate environments, teaching them skills to keep their bodies healthy using chair-based exercise, which eventually led to redesigning the enhanced fitness program, now with the YMCA of the USA, which is now in over 800 different systems, with a very high rate of people coming back, much higher than the Silver Sneakers program, whose rate of return has been about 56%. Enhanced Fitness has about 90%, and that's held through 3 different government studies. Now my work with UNESCO's International Dance Council started with getting government authorities to start offering dance-based educational programs in the public schools. After a number of years designing programs that ran from the practical to the ridiculous inside of government facilities, Enhanced Fitness was one that I put together for them that made them a lot of money. The other has been one of 3 different models for after-school programs for youth. And here last November, after working on a campaign to get Cal State to start offering advanced degrees in dance and dance cultures, the California legislature voted a minimum of $1 billion a year to go to art and culture programs in the public schools themselves. Presently, I am working with UnityNet International and UnityNet Africa and Diaspora, who came upon me while I was organizing hip hop practitioners around the globe so that they could form their own council and run their own sport of breaking in the Olympics, rather than the Russian Federation, who's committing genocide by doing so. What we have right now is I've been interviewing community-based organizations, non-governmental organizations, and chapter organizations in the African interior. Let's see, we've been at it for, this is our 13th month. And so far I have spoken with over 800 different community-based organizations on the ground, with a very simple plan that is based upon the baseline structure of nonprofit service organizations worldwide, so that once we get them through the exercises in collaborative marketing, well, not marketing, negotiations, collaborative negotiations, as well as restructuring of certain other things. We are forming them into association partnerships right now, which corresponds very, very deeply with what Lloyd has called INAB collaboratives. These groups will be able to start sharing common practices, and through their teaching gardens, change the form of outreach that they've been practicing individually, and make it more a collaboration between a number of groups in order to gather up the information that nonprofit service agencies use as their agreement and collaboration with governments at large. The community partnerships and nonprofit service organizations have their finger on the pulse of the people. They know how many people are in an area, where they've come from, what they're likely to be doing, what they like to wear, what they like to eat, They collaborate with other institutions on a variety of practices, including research and study. So this is going to be forming an internal structure that is going to be heavily taken advantage of, well, not advantage of, but is going to be a very great foundation for the network of networks to be able to step in, assist, and in certain places intervene with the products and the services that they offer to groups who work under conflict circumstances, which is where we are in the African interior right now. As things move forward politically, between the ceasefire signed in Ethiopia about 3 months ago and the renewed talks about the formation of the African Federation, which would be the third largest country on the planet, should these negotiations prove successful, we're looking at a restructuring programs and facilities where the government may actually be able to do a governmental job of knowing what is inside its borders, what those people want, what those people need, and how they can facilitate. And by so doing, get that information that they desperately need for working with the International Monetary Fund, USAID, nations that offer up grants and foundation monies to improve certain aspects of infrastructure such as education and healthcare, just to name a couple. And of course, through the efforts of these INAB collaboratives, which are 3 levels in full: association partnership, regional partnership, and national vendor partnership. As those groups form and become recognizable, a number of other organizations will feel that they are now fully qualified to involve themselves in a much deeper manner to assist in restructuring. And of course, Alain, I'm more than happy to speak with you about this, because I see you writing things down and I'm like, okay, he is very, very interested in discussing the details. So as we move forward with this very next level of completing the process by which we formulate these association partnerships or INAB collaboratives at the community level, teach them about the collective bargaining process through a series of exercises, help them build their community gardens, which under present circumstances will be a huge draw for many hands who will assist them in building things bigger, including other CBOs that we haven't reached out to that'll want to start associations of their own. This is a natural progression of the nonprofit service. It's sort of like the growth of a tree. When allowed under those proper conditions, which are guidance and mutual desires involved, what occurs is we have a restoration of social structures that in many countries either have never been or have been gone for over 80 years. I think I've said plenty. There are other things that I'm working on, of course. And anybody who wants to know, I've already put my information in the chat. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Lisa Anise. I do work quite closely with Lisa Anise in trying to define how we build this, how we move forward, and what needs to be done. So she's been my mentor as well in so many ways. So hoping to hear from Patrick, because he's got a business doing something that I think is very critical as well to the engagement, especially with these larger entities that we call corporations.
Well, thank you, Lloyd. And thank you, Andrew. What we have been trying to do is to, I agree with Alain that, software is not the best place to start. But we have been working with a lot of trainers, a lot of soft skill trainers.
Excuse me, Patrick. Patrick, please begin by introducing your name, your organization, etc. Thank you.
Yes, Patrick Chun from Vancouver, Canada. I am the co-founder of an NGO called the World Civility Index. And this index is somewhat similar to your personal credit rating. But instead of measuring how well you can pay your bills, it measures how much manners you have. It measures how much empathy and how much awareness of climate change, for example, that you have. So it's a measurement system. It's all software. Sorry, Alan. And we have been in 19 countries with over 200,000 participants worldwide at this stage. And I've been talking to Andrew and Roy about this great idea about planting trees in front of companies. And so by having that, that would prompt a lot more curiosity and awareness of the situations. And employees can take a picture with the tree, and we're going to provide a QR code, and they can scan it, and they can earn 1 point on their own personal World Civility Index. And so this index is something they carry along. And what our nonprofit has done is actually all the employees can add up their points, and the company can have an average score. An average score for every company or every community, and any organizations and so on. And together with all the companies and so on, a country can also has a single point called the country average World Civility Index. Very recently, we have published 15 countries that are participating in this. So there are 15 countries with their own average World Civility Index. So you may say that this civility index is similar to what they have with Human Development Index and other indexes. And it's almost like GDP, but in the 21st century, we're saying that GDP is not enough. In fact, GDP may be a bad thing, because if they have war going on, they make more tanks and so on, their GDP goes up. So what happened now is with the World Civility Index, we're actually measuring how much civility people have. And the problem with what we talked with Andrew and Lloyd, social fabric has been slowly deteriorating for the last 50 years for many reasons. Young people no longer sit around dining table with their family and parents and learn the values and life skills from parents. So that has been a big problem. So what we're trying to do is we actually have a lot of trainers and experts helping us into writing articles, making videos like what you're doing, Alan. I would really love to see what you're doing. And we can show that with company employees. When they scan the QR code under that tree, they are opening up to a whole world of what we call reading program. So they can read about what Alan is doing, and they can also read about what other people are doing as well. So that in that case, they will be more aware of something like this, and they can earn points on the World Civility Index and increase their points. So that is the idea about this collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Patrick. I think that that really makes for rounding out our programs, especially as we try to engage with all of these entities, the institutions in our communities, not even just the corporations, but the cities. And
So that's such an important point, Elaine. I want to commend Patrick for bringing this forward, and you, Lloyd, for making this platform available. But Elaine, the very same benefits that a corporation employees enjoy, so can municipal employees enjoy. And in many cases, it is the city that drives the corporate viewpoint. And so you have to be the sample of the example, or the more you are the sample of the example, the better you'll engage our youth who don't pay attention to what you say, but pay a close attention to what you do. So I encourage Elaine and Patrick to have a collaborative about ways to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. That's a very good idea to bring these people together who have the solutions and the tools, with those who are seeking those types of solutions and tools.
Excellent. Heinrich has been patient. So Heinrich, please introduce yourself. Begin, of course, with your name, location, organization, etc. Thank you so much, Heinrich. Please proceed.
Hello, everybody. My name is Heinrich van der Merwe. I'm an agricultural engineer. So my forte is to look at food and fiber production for people. Many people have a misconception of agricultural engineering. It is a real engineering discipline. We focus on the engineering aspects that's required in food and animal production, mechanization, and so forth. I'm from Vanderbijl Park, one of the industrial cities next to the Vaal River in South Africa, in the Gauteng province. We had abundance of rain. The Vaal River was in full flood this year. They had to open up many sluice gates in the different dams in the river, and it was havoc downstream when this water arrived in the holiday camps and holiday places next to the river downstream. So the farmers will have an abundance of water in the next season. The problem in South Africa, though, is that our utility that used to be the second best utility, electrical utility in the world, is suffering now due to various reasons to keep up with the power demand in South Africa. And we are experiencing rolling blackouts of different phases all the time, and you're never prepared for what is going to happen. Eskom is trying to manage it as well as possible, but it is influencing our economy adversely. We are losing small companies every day now. Unemployment have shot up to levels that you can't explain to people. And this is the problems that we are facing as a nation at this moment in time. And I think one of the important things when the chips are down, is to focus on the similarities. Everybody have the same problem. Everybody have the same needs. Those basic needs. I think one of the mistakes that we are making is to focus on the differences. Let's forget for a moment the differences and let's focus on the similarities. People want to live in a safe environment. People want to have a proper dwelling to live in. People want a dignified job. People want to see their children going to a safe school. And, never mind where we come from or what is our historical background. That is the basic needs of all people. Even if you go into a dwelling, in South Africa, we've got these informal structures. But if you go and visit people in that informal structure, you will immediately realize that they've got a bedroom, a sitting room, they've got a TV, they've got a set to the best of their ability in the sitting room. Although it's a sing structure, it's still those people are trying to achieve what you and I are achieving in our houses. And I think that we need to focus on those things. I think what I've heard from Elaine tonight is very encouraging. And what we've heard from Patrick, we are measuring things with the incorrect yardstick. We are totally measuring the wrong thing. And for us to be successful, we will have to start focusing on a total systems approach. I was studying poultry production, small-scale poultry production in the past weeks, and I realized that, this is far more complex than to entice somebody to start a 5,000 hen layer unit, because there is somebody that needs to incubate the eggs. There's somebody that needs to rear the pullets. There's somebody that needs to mix the feed and supply the feed. And if you don't have a total systems approach, you are never going to establish a proper egg production facility in any area. And you know, that is why, you know, one of the things that we measure have been mentioned now every week is, you know, to setting up this centers of knowledge where people can actually go and visit and find out how to do it, you know. And we need to create businesses that's going to be sustainable. You know, we've seen in this period in time in South Africa, a lot of businesses went under because if you don't run your business correctly in these difficult times, if you are living out of the till and those type of things, it is what's killing your business in the difficult times. You know, when all the customers are falling over each other to come and buy from you, it's a different story. But suddenly you need to have the standard operating procedures that's going to not only take you through the affluent times, but also through the difficult times. And this is the type of knowledge that we need to disseminate. We need to get this information to the young people, to the people in areas where they are starting up. We need to guide governments. We need to guide continents to come up with a sustainable practice so that we've got food for the people, we've got fiber to make clothes, we've got all the elements that we all require. You know, it's not that, you know, I'm different from the Eskimo that's living up in he also needs a dwelling, he also needs heat, he also needs fuel, he also needs protein. And if we realize that we are more similar than different, I think we can make the life for ourselves a lot easier. So I've always been an advocate to identify those catalytic projects that we can multiply ourselves. I mean, a few people that sits around their computers tonight can only make a difference if we latch onto moving vehicles. If we identify institutions that's already moving, and we can guide them to change their direction a little bit at a time, to start incorporating these things that we believe is important to gain attention. I was watching the Kelly Clarkson show with my wife tonight, and normally I don't watch it, but they had a guy on the Kelly Clarkson show that as a 16-year-old chappie, he decided to go to the Ivory Coast to go and help with some disaster there. And he's a filmmaker. He wants to film things and report back to people. So his dad said, but he's a fireman, he's going with him, he's going to help him. A fireman can be very handy. And then his mother said, but she can speak French, so she can be. And so the whole family went over there and they go and help those people. And the message that they brought back is, you know, but this is people, this is, you know, people with the same needs as the people that we've met as friends in America. And this guy have built out a business today and have sponsored projects all over the world, building schools, building facilities, helping people from India to Africa, or wherever there's a need. And the thing is, you've got a sustainable program, and we need to latch on to people like this. I mean, we know that the internet is going to change Africa, and we need to, how do you get people to benefit from the internet? They can't afford these expensive cell phones and computers, but there's a second-hand market for cell phones. If we can, for instance, introduce cell phone repair into most of the townships in South Africa and other parts of Africa, they will generate cheap appliances that people can use to access the internet and we've talked about this before. We've said that the one thing that's changing Africa, for instance, is the cell phone. And how can we latch on? How can we identify that as a catalytic project? The second thing that we must remember, every project that we tackle, we must take care of the young people and the old people. That's built in. That is part of life. And you know, in too many cases, we come up with ideas that separate the family. That where you end up with the mother in one part of the world and the father in the other part of the world and the children somewhere in some sort of care. And that is one of the things we need to respect the fabric of the family and see how with every project that we implement, how we can knit that stronger and better. And I think that if we can achieve that, we can make a huge difference. And I'm always astounded about what is actually happening and how involved people are in communities. But we also need to make sure that the knowledge that we've got, one person can't make the difference that lots of people can make. And we need to move from, you know, individual ideas to multiply this and get projects going with the same idea all over the globe. And that is where we need to get to. We need to get buy-in from those moving vehicles, from those activities that's already going, and see how we can tweak their strategy to benefit what we want to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Heinrich. Actually, I really like the way you frame that, say that we should latch onto those moving vehicles. I like that terminology, because that is actually the approach I've been taking here in Markham as we move forward, to say, okay, what are the things that our councillors are already doing? What are the things that our local developers are already doing? For instance, here where I am, we have land set aside for a school, for a community center. It hasn't been built yet, so that's where I want to engage now, ahead of time, before anything's planned, with the developer, with the community, with the councillors, to say, okay, what can we do with the space that's different, that really can connect us in? So now we're creating a space that can also connect in with a space in South Africa, and a space in Uganda, and a space in Sierra Leone, and in Sri Lanka, and in Los Angeles, and in La Patrie, Quebec. So now all these communities are now talking to each other through the community space that's being created in my own backyard. And so now what are the other projects going on in my community that are going to move ahead regardless of whether I'm involved in that conversation or
Agreed.
not?
Agreed.
And let's just move ahead in that way. I like that approach.
Thanks. Please, Lisa Simpson, and then please allow Stephanie to introduce herself if she hasn't. But go ahead, Lisa. Elise.
Okay, I just wanted to point out to Hendrik, I put something in the chat. One of the things that we're working on is there are NGOs all over the planet that produce computers to send to groups in conflict regions. Our big problem has been the shipping. And what we've been wanting to get people mobilized to do is gather up our African diaspora to have them act as envoys, which they already do for their own organizations, but to see if we can help get a little piece of that and have them bring some of these items, such as computers, tablets, netbooks, the works, in their luggage for the cost of an extra baggage fee. And of course, the cost of getting it overland to where you are and where you have need. So feel free to contact me about that, because that's part of the next series of group arrangements that I'll be making, is to get this process started.
Thank you
so very much. Stephanie Schuler, next up.
Stephanie?
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm Stephanie Schuler, and I'm based in Toronto, Canada. Good to see you all. An excellent discussion. So I'm in the final year of my doctoral research at the University of Toronto, OISE, the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education. And my particular research has to do with labeling in the school years, labeling children with learning disability or any disability, and the social emotional experience of going through that from the school system. And obviously I have a hunch that can be a negative experience being labeled by society, being labeled by a system. And so everything I have to do has to do with inclusive communities and holistic well-being, social emotional well-being of the individual and the community. I'm also a founder of Maui Aloha Project, which is a global eco-village initiative, which is aimed to support the co-creation of sustainable and regenerative living, learning, and thriving communities. And so on a micro level, I'm really glad to meet Alain on this call because Maui Aloha Project is hoping to begin its creation of kind of a blueprint living community, and hoping to do that in Hawaii, which is the furthest removed landmass from any other landmass in the world. And also we have a group of about 100 people in the Ottawa area, Ottawa, Canada. And you're not far from there, I see by the Sherbrooke location. And what we're trying to do is address housing and food insecurity, having communal relations, inclusive communities where everybody contributes their multi-literacies, and where we grow food for the community and for the community beyond and have regenerative businesses. I am a learning and community regenerative design consultant, and I have a background in play. And I talk about the youth mental health crisis that we have in the world and the global mental health crisis that we have in general globally. And I really believe in these. The reason I'm supporting the co-creation of intentional communities is especially after COVID, we have a loneliness. We live in a loneliness era. And I really believe that the well-being of community members and the individual coming together in community is a real cure for that, whether we're breaking bread together, whether we're working in a project, sowing the seeds of our garden actually. And I really believe in the arts and whatnot. So with Lisa Anise, I believe in music and dancing and sports and art. And of course, immersion in outside spaces. I am the Canadian representative for the Alternative Education Resource Organization. And wherever I go, I make it a point to explore the educational alternatives, and also to explore alternative types of community, whether it be tiny homes or co-housing in urban centers and in rural centers. And we need to diversify this way. We need to have a systems-based approach, just like Heinrich said. It is us who are suggesting, we are the guides of how we must go forward and how we must empower the next generation of youth to know all food systems learning from seed to table. Children this must be an essential part of communities going ahead, trying to make, as was said, individual farms and individual gardens and trying to make that happen en masse. And of course, I'm a founder and director of UnityNet International, along with Lloyd and along with Mark, and director of the Unity Learning Network, as I'm all about education and learning and teaching these systems, demonstrating these systems, learning these systems, the food learning systems and climate action initiatives that are responsible so that we can be the stewards of Mother Earth and we can have responsible relations with each other and the planet. And I think that's it for now. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephanie, so much. for introducing yourself as well to all of our members, including Alain. So we're hoping to, of course, follow up with Alain as well through Douglas and others in Quebec. As I had mentioned in an email, that we really would love to have this partnership, especially with La Patrie and their residents and the community over there, because I have been designated, as I mentioned in my introduction, as the representative for Canada, the Commonwealth of Nations and La Francophonie, as well as Turtle Island. So La Francophonie, of course, is the 88 organizations, 88 jurisdictions who are members of the French organization created in France, the former colonial power that has so many countries represented in Africa as well, but all of them being majority French-speaking countries. And I'm being not a French speaker, we're always looking for people who can translate. And as we especially talk with our colleagues in places like Democratic Republic of Congo and other French-speaking communities, it'd be great to have this relationship with a French-speaking community in Quebec, who would then perhaps serve somewhat as a liaison to those local communities across Africa who are speaking French, where we do have many members on our network who are French-speaking in those French-speaking countries, for instance, the DRC and elsewhere, Cameroon and other places, but they are not participating in these discussions because these take place in English, and most of our correspondence is in English. So having that place where we can say, yes, we are working with a French-speaking community, they can assist in the translations, they can assist in really connecting those French communities around the world, those 88 members of La Francophonie, that global organization that exists already. We're hoping to really be able to say, okay, La Patrie is going to be an example for, let's say, a community in the Democratic Republic of Congo who can do similar things in engaging their communities.
I interject just a little remark very quickly there. The fact that it's called La Patrie, it's kind of like, it's a nice coincidence, actually. It's like, we'll be le flambeau de la francophonie. Ouais, La Patrie.
What is the translation of La Patrie? Is that patriotism? Or
Well, it's not patriotism, the ism, but it's like saying, yeah, where you live, like who you are, what community you identify with. Ma patrie, c'est tel endroit. So it's saying it's where my heart is.
Oh, it's where my heart is. Okay, maybe that could be the translation. But I'll have to take
maybe. I've taken a little bit of artistic license with the web, but that's the essence of it.
No, I mean that really works, actually, because I think everybody should have their own patrie, if I can say that. And actually, that's one of the things we are trying to do, is reconnect people. And this is why we're hoping to work with the 7th Generation Initiative, but basically what they are trying to do is reconnect people to their watersheds and their bioregions, and establish a global network of local bioregions. So look at your watershed, look at where you are, look at the climate where you are. What grows here? What thrives here? What are the habitats? What lives here? What are the other creatures in this watershed? And how do they thrive? What are their habitats? And so how can we enhance them to ensure that we enhance the biodiversity of our own watersheds and our own bioregions as we live our daily lives? And so that is part of the conversation we as well would like to have. And it's this concept of how do we live a regenerative lifestyle in ways that can satisfy our own needs while also satisfying the needs of all our relations. And of course, that's an Indigenous concept of who who are all our relations? Who are we living with and that's supporting us, without which we would not be alive either? So has there been anybody that has not spoken yet at this point? Njeri Shomari, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I was just typing a note because in the chat because I had to go. So I will be brief. I'm in a small town in Kansas, Lawrence, Kansas, in US, center of America. And I just chatted what my group was about. Thank you, because I have been on here to learn very much about what everyone is doing, and it matches with the goals of what we are doing in terms of building community for emerging adults who are coming out of foster care or have been in foster care. If they're coming out at 18 and have, needing affordable housing, we have land that's been in our family for generations, and we have built on the land tiny homes for these emerging adults to move into. And we will be finishing 5 of the first 10 homes, hopefully at the end of this month, if no more, what do they call the supply chain issues maybe are stopping us. And everything that has been talked about this morning into this afternoon are things that we are doing. And I'm learning so much about so many other people that are providing the same sorts of supports all across the world. And this is so motivating to me, and having learned a lot and finding connection in this group for young people to avail themselves of this knowledge and really want to live this way. This is on a farm outside of town. No amenities like what they would have in the city of dishwasher. Everything is solar. Their garden, giving them an opportunity to understand about the earth and what we owe to the earth, and how they can give back and become a part of their own future and the future of the next generations. So I just am so glad. I feel so small, with everybody being all worldwide and everything like that. But what we're trying to do is to become a model for other places to see that this will work. If we work it, it will work.
Well, Jerry, thank you so much, but please understand we're here to surround and support what you're doing, because at the end of the day, each of us is only as large as the impact we have. And the fact that you're having impact on children, I think, is a sample of the example for all of us to follow. So I'd have to ask you to invite any of those children who you are involved with to join us here and share their thoughts. At the end of the day, we're only here for their benefit, but until and unless they join the narrative, unfortunately, they will not be as self-empowered as they could be, as we're all willing to help them achieve. So make sure you have your contact information in the chat, and we look forward to finding ways to work and network with you.
I did put it in there, and I thank you, and I appreciate that when we get the interviews and start getting people moved in, this will be the place where I will offer for them to come. We're not a program in the sense that we force anything on people, but we do offer encouragement, and I think this would be a great place to start. Thank you so much.
Welcome home.
Thank you.
We are all welcoming here.
Right.
Back to you, Lloyd.
Okay, I'm seeing the clock is past 1:30 already over here in Toronto area. I don't know if there are any people we have not heard of yet from I believe everybody has spoken, perhaps.
Emmanuel.
Emmanuel, yes.
Emmanuel.
Yeah, good
Yes.
evening. Yeah, good evening, everyone.
Greetings.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. It's 8:30 p.m. here already in Rwanda. I just came back from the office. So sorry, please.
Welcome home. Now's your time to introduce yourself.
Thank you.
The office from where? What are you doing? Tell us about what's happening in there.
Yeah, my name is Emmanuel. I'm from Nigeria, but currently residing in Rwanda. I'm currently the CEO of Trema Agro Services Limited. Trema Agro Services Limited is a platform where we're trying to build young people interest into agriculture. So we have digital platforms, incubator, accelerator platforms that encourage young people to get involved in agriculture, and also women. So currently we're like trying to serve as the middle guys between the government, the people, see how we can lobby government also to invest in agriculture. Because in Africa, agricultural financing is more like a tale. It's more about media paparazzi, not as though it's really happening. So that's one of the things we do, and we're trying to see how we can also build young people knowledge, skills in terms of skills now, because agriculture is becoming a skill set, soft power profession, not like what we have before in Africa, where people use all their strength, their minds to farm, and yet they cannot do so much because we are doing more man labor instead of machineries, or taking advantage of technology that has come to leapfrog activities around the world. So this is what we're currently doing in Rwanda, and I'm learning here and also trying to see how best I can collaborate, partner with a lot of you that are already doing amazing things around the space. Thank you so much.
I believe also you're involved with Jenny Carrington, who is part of our team. I believe I've seen your AgroFest on the Mother Earth website. So again, welcome home. This is the same.
Thank you so much.
Still the same family.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
No, it's absolutely wonderful that we are having people from all over different continents and different countries, and we are trying to uphold and uplift all of our local communities through these structures that we would like to create. So continue with our process as we move forward. Make sure that you're aware of the conversations that are happening and the activities that are happening. This is why we have those scheduled events throughout the year, where we'll have specific conversations, specific activities that are intended to do specific and achieve specific results. Just as we do the drumming festival, that really gets our conversations going around the establishment of the youth peace gardens, and then we come back to those in May, and we try to organize those youth in the communities so that they can do proper ceremonies in June. And then in June, that's when we create the initial structures, bring everybody together to create those INAB collaboratives. And then we come back once we've created those to come and celebrate and have the Bubble Fun festivals. And then later in the year, in October, we'll come and come again to those youth peace gardens to really start teaching people, not just the young people, but their families and all the community members about some of these solutions. Those, again, the 5 different open source infrastructure solutions that we call climate smart solutions that can help to achieve the abundance in our own local watersheds, our own local communities that we need to provide for those basic needs of every human. which is around food, water, energy, and livelihood.
Excellent. Well, Lloyd, we started at 10 after the hour, so I think now's an excellent time to wrap it up and get ready for next week.
Yeah, thank you very much, Andrew, and thanks for all coming on. And we will come back for week 93 of the IGU Summit next week on March 16th for additional discussions and dialogues around these networks that we are building.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
everyone.
Gratitude.
Thank you, bye.
Thank you. Be well.
All right, everyone, have a wonderful day. Love to all.
And to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Alain. Thank you, Douglas, and thank you, Lisa Neese, and everybody that's on the call.